Hey, what's up, guys? It's Christina welcoming you to the first of what I hope will be many video interviews slash blogs on the new site. I hope you enjoyed the new site. I certainly spent a lot of time writing new material, updating the old material, combining blog posts that could be more useful or relevant. I've certainly changed my writing style and developed what I hope is a stronger voice over the last year. So I hope that you guys are enjoying all the stuff that we put together. With that being said, one of my favorite things of the old site, the original ChristinaVillarini.com, was the interview I did with my really great friend Danny over at WakingIdeas.com. Now, if you've never been to WakingIdeas.com, I encourage you, after you're done watching this, to go ahead and check out his site because it's amazing. Danny is sort of a multi-talented Swiss Army knife of a web presence. He consults. He's one of my partners in our media firm. He's a top-notch photographer. He's a great writer, and I'm very, very pleased to have been able to work with him over the last 2 or 3 years now. But one of my favorite things about the old site was when Dan interviewed me, because there were so many superbly crafted questions that stumped me. And I thought, since we were going to do another interview sort of to catch up with everything that's happened, that I would film it and you guys can watch me read these questions, be genuinely stumped by them, and then hopefully give really sincere, good sounding answers that make me appear to be somewhat aware and present in the moment. That being said, this will probably be a really long video, just because his questions are usually pretty deep and thought-provoking. So I want to make sure that this is entertaining for everyone involved. So take your 10 seconds, go get a glass of wine, Coke or whatever it is that your vice may be, and just let us go along for the ride. So here is Dan's questions. And also special thanks to Dan for taking some time out to write these questions and just kick my ass a little bit. So this is from Dan, and then I'm going to give my answer. So 2 years ago, we talked about a number of things, including writing books, methods and mediums for reading, the future of the publishing industry, and other technology and how it changes our lives. We both act and are acted upon. From the outside into your life, what are the 3 biggest external events that have changed things in your life, and what are the significance of these events in your personal life? What were the biggest takeaway lessons learned? The 3 biggest external events that have changed things in my life. I think that I would be remiss not to mention my girlfriend and I sort of getting back together, moving in together, and that situation. I think that's huge. I think that when you're an artist and you have chaos or strain in your personal life, that your art suffers. I think that goes without saying. So getting to a place where no matter how crazy my artistic life was, my home life was together, I think improved the quality of my art and the direction that I could take tenfold. Because as a person, you sort of, and as an artist, you have these things that are vital to you and sustain you. And one of those things for me are my relationships, not just with my friends and other artists, that community, but also with my girlfriend, Nicole. And it was really important for both of us, I think, before we could move forward in our professional endeavors, to get our relationship under control so that we could put that on the shelf and appreciate that, but focus on the other things that are not quite perfect yet. I think us moving in together was huge. I think that her being committed to being with an artist over the long term was huge. And I have to say that just moving in together in February and having, our dog Brady and all of the things that we committed to, hugely important, hugely significant. I think one of the other outside external factors that I can concentrate on in a completely professional way that was hugely impactful was me making the conscious decision to focus a lot more on nurturing that artistic community. So it went from saying, hey, I really, really like Chris Guillebeau. I really, really like Joel Runyon. I really, really like Ramit Sethi. I really, really like Derek Halpern. And instead of just constantly saying that out loud, deciding that, you know what, I need to meet those guys, nurture that relationship, meet other people who are in that space, and, get out there, be more forward thinking, be more aggressive in pushing myself and propelling myself forward. Because I've always said I wanted to be in the conversation with those guys. When people talk about blogs that are entertaining them, are enlightening them, are pushing them in their careers and in their art and in their finances in some cases, I think that I wanted to be in that dialogue for the last 3 or 4 years. So it was really important for me to make that conscious decision that I was going to reach out to those guys and I was going to go to their events and I was going to, meet other people in the same space as them. I think that was huge. That was hugely impactful, as far as helping me make a decision to get better, to get bigger. That was hugely significant, not just because of, what it does for your career to network with those that are really successful, but also because it builds up your confidence when you're a room full of people that, you don't feel like you belong in, because at some point you hit that precipice and you have to say, well, little ones, cover your ears here, but shit or get off the pot. I'm at this point where I have to say, if I want to be in the conversation, then I have to be near those guys, around those guys, or as good as those guys. And you have to hold yourself accountable to that. So at some point, you have to either crumble inside yourself and just, revert to the child pose, to the fetal position, or you have to say, I'm a badass. I can do this. Let's go. And I don't know if this is the biggest external event, but I think it is significant. Was my sort of push from being a freelancer with a long-term contract of mine to becoming their media director, which I am no longer. But I think that really was huge because I discovered something that I like very much in the media. I think I discovered a lot of things that are really great for my personality and for the type of person that I am. I'm an analytical person. I like data. I like research. Any of my, corporate jobs before I became an artist usually centered upon those components. So I think figuring out that it's not just art that I really love, but it's the media part, and it's the marketing, and there's all this science and storytelling in business. I think that has been hugely significant in helping me as an artist and growing and changing. I think the biggest takeaway lessons learned are that nothing is what it seems. I think if there's anything that I've learned from being on this journey for so long is that nothing is ever what you think it's going to be. I thought that relaunching would be the easiest thing in the world, and then 6 months later I was still interviewing web design teams, and I got inherently blessed with Ravelor Interactive, but it looked pretty bleak for a little bit as far as like, who's going to get my vision? Who's going to get, my brand? That word that I hate so much. Who's going to get my, my quirky sense of humor and where I want to go? And who's going to help me when I get to the level that I want to reach, get past that? Who's going to help me push to the next level? Because I feel like with all of this is the next level. You're always trying to be better. So I think that's huge. I think that knowing that nothing is going to be what you think it is incredibly helpful in like just being comfortable with what you're doing, even though it doesn't seem to make sense. So we're going to go to the next question by Dan. 2 years is an incredible amount of time, over 1 million minutes. What are the 3 biggest changes in your life that have come within? What are you doing differently? How has your personal philosophy evolved? I think that question is really introspective, especially because I've been working on, fine-tuning some of the older blogs to make them match more of what I'm trying to say without necessarily losing the fact that my older work is a lot more brief and punchy and sort of stream of consciousness to the point. This is where I was. This is what I'm trying to say, which I really like. And I think that was incredibly brave for where I was at that time. I talked about some of the really huge changes that just happened, or some of the more significant changes that have happened in my life. I guess what I'm doing differently is I'm trying to focus more on things that I like, and I'm also focusing very, very, very much on self-development. So going back to school was really important to me, and so I'm doing that. I'm taking a class with Michael Ellsberg, who wrote The Education of Millionaires, which is a book that I really, really loved. I read pretty much have read all of his stuff in Forbes. I recommend him if you haven't read anything by him. So, I think it's pretty well documented by now that, because I've been shouting it from the rooftops for like a month now, that I was one of the folks in Seth Godin's summer intensive with 19 other geniuses up in Hastings-on-Hudson. And I've been working really, really as hard as I am at writing on developing in every possible area that I can use as an artist. Because a lot of the misconception about artists is that maybe their work is really good, but they suck at marketing themselves. Or maybe they're marketing themselves really well, but the message sucks. Or maybe their brand sucks. Or maybe their website sucks. Or their content isn't user friendly. Or they're not selling their stuff enough. Or they don't have enough merchandise out, which is something that I fight with myself about still, 2 or 3 years later, whether or not I should just be saturating some sort of market with all of this stuff that I've written, or if I should be concentrating on creating something that I think is meaningful and wonderful and pricing it really, really low so that people can access it and that the value is there and people can determine for themselves what the value is. I think that that's another thing that that sort of reaches into that statement or that question about personal philosophy. Um, I think that I've learned a lot more about value and when you're selling something, what the value of that can be to people, and how no price can ever determine for your customer or your audience what the value is of an item. So I think that you concentrate less on that. You just try to price competitively and make something that you're proud of. And I think that that sort of always centered around what my personal philosophy was, which was I want to create something that I'm proud of, that people enjoy, or that resonates with my readership or my audience, new people and old people who just find their way to my site. So I think that's really, really important is, your personal philosophy can change as you get older and as you get wiser and as you have more experience. But at the same time, I think that once you find something that you really believe in, that's going to be where you sort of center yourself. So, another question by Dan. What music have you been listening to lately? Have you discovered or rediscovered anything that's made an emotional impact in your life? Okay, so music. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on and on about music. I think that my girlfriend listens to a lot of like top 40 stuff, like the stuff on the charts. So I listen to a lot of that stuff too. I think I've rediscovered how much I love Sia Furler. She's got a couple of things that she's featured on the radio right now. And I have her discography on my computer, and she's just got, one of the most amazing voices ever. It's just so versatile, and it's so beautiful and dark and melodic, and it's this very just layered, beautiful instrument. I had the pleasure of interviewing her some time ago, and she was super sick, and she didn't work for a really long time. And she fainted on stage, and it looked pretty dire, her condition. And now she's kicking ass. So, I mean, that's one thing that she's great. So I would recommend anything. So I guess I won't say that I rediscovered this because I kind of just finished that project. A little bit ago, I bought a turntable, and I had to get an amplifier and some speakers to just make that happen. And I finally got around to setting that up in the living room, which is where I am right now. And last night I spent probably about 2 hours just listening to records, and it was just so ridiculous. Like listening to Kanye West and like beautiful dark twisted fantasy on vinyl. It's kind of like a weird moment within a moment because I love that album so much, and it just sounded so beautiful on vinyl. And then I got to finally spin my Third Eye Blind self-titled vinyl, which I bought years ago just for the moment that I would actually have a record player and a turntable. And to finally have that was huge, and to be able to listen to that and hear these songs that I've been just so tied to since I was, 16 years old, it was really, really great. It was like I heard it again for the first time, and that was really, really beautiful. That was a really, really nice moment. I don't know if I've rediscovered this. I'm kind of always doing this, but I think that I've sort of appreciated reading a lot lately. I've made it something that's really important to me and something that I focus on and that I take the time to do every day. So that's really awesome. Just there's so many books and there's so many things, and I just feel very, very fortunate to have that. I just got the little buzzer that I have 17 minutes / 10% remaining on my laptop. So we're going to take a brief intermission to move. So you guys get a tour of my apartment. That's kind of awesome / weird. It's like the sort of Blair Witch Project type of situation there. Okay, so yeah, I've recently rediscovered reading a lot, and that's really awesome. I just got Trust Me, I'm Lying by Ryan Holiday, who is a media genius, or as he would call himself, a media manipulator. So that was cool. I'm excited about tearing into that. And I've been reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. So I think I've rediscovered just being a member of the audience and not just being such a creator and being so obsessed with that. Next question. What's your daily routine like these days? Do you have any cool techniques or tools to keep you on target with your short and long-term goals? I'm kind of a nuts stickler for lists. So I like constantly keep my Gmail open on my computer, and I think that it's like really awesome when I finish something, and I get pretty stoked when I can like respond to an email and like put it in a label or in a folder or something, or like delete it. That gets me really hyped. Evernote is like my favorite thing ever. Huge fan of it. I have the app on my phone, and then I have it on my computer, and then you can web sign in from remote locations if you have an account, and it's just genius. You just pick up your work wherever you left off, make little notations to yourself, you can copy web pages. It's the dopest fucking thing ever, seriously. As far as my routine, I write every day. I mean, the routine has changed a lot since we got the dog. You know, it's a balancing act. If you're doing more than one thing that you really, really love, it's a balancing act. You know, I'm really excited to be back into my actual fitness routine of like Muay Thai and kettlebells and, you know, just focusing on getting healthy. And I think this summer has been the summer of takeout, much to the dismay of my mother. She knows that I eat takeout pretty much every night of the week, and she hates that. So it's always a treat when my mom gives me leftovers. But I think just exercising and having outlets that are outside of whatever your art is huge for being able to like shut off the noise in your head, you know, like going for a walk, going for a run, practicing martial arts, playing music. Just something that gets you out of that mode of the way you're running, on all systems go when you're creating something. I think that that's huge. I think that's very, very important. I think that, I've talked a little bit about systems and rewards in the past. I blogged a little bit about like the little things that I do to like entice myself or reward myself when I work. If I finish this, this 4 pages, if I finish researching, or if I could do, complete a draft on a project that I'm working on, then I'll get myself that crumb cake at Starbucks, or I'll take myself to Luke's Lobster and get a lobster roll. It's silly, but it's something that sort of engages that part of yourself that really wants to accomplish something, because we're all little kids that secretly want presents, So I think that's really important, having apps and different sort of tricks that empower you. So, another Dan question. The relaunch of ChristinaVillarini.com marks a new era in the digital record of your site. From what I remember of the sneak peek I saw a month or so ago, the design was cleaner, more professional, and overall more focused on presenting the ideas without much distraction. What's the current philosophy or mission of the site? What's the content plan for the site? What sort of things will be on the site in the future, and how often should readers expect to see updates? Terrible question, Dan. Now I'm gonna screw myself over and make all kinds of promises that I can't keep right now. I hope that you guys who've been clicking around now for a little bit can say that you feel the same way. I mean, that was very kind of Dan to say that it was cleaner. He did get to see the sort of in progress version of it before we did, as Carol would say, some housekeeping. So it's just really, really great that this site is so much better than the old site, but still keeps so much of the heart. That was really important to me. It's like, I want it to be different. I want it to be amazing. I want people to find whatever they're looking for. I want people to be able to see and feel me all over this site, like who I am and what I'm trying to do. And I think that we accomplished that, and I think that we'll always be moving closer to, the site being this 100% representation of me digitally. The current philosophy or mission of the site, I think, is to find ways to have people who are on the site enforce creativity in their own life. And this idea of having this moniker wasn't just like, I want to give myself a cool nickname. I thought, what is it that I want people to think I do? I've blogged about that in the past, about the BS when you're trying to explain to somebody that you're an artist or a freelancer or whatever. How difficult it is for people to really take that work seriously. And I know that that's changed a lot more recently than maybe 3 years ago, when there was still this community of people thinking that artists are like hobos sleeping on their benches in Central Park. I think that this idea of enforcing creativity is softer than saying you need to quit your job today and start a business and travel across country, and or if you're a singer, you need to stop working at Starbucks and pick up your guitar and go to Nashville and play in coffee houses until somebody notices you. Like, I think that there's a bit of a disconnect from this community of people who are doing what they love and sort of imposing that on the audience. And I think I wanted to provide an alternative, because not everyone is ready for that. And I'm not necessarily saying that we should coddle people that are in situations they hate, because I was one of those people. And there wasn't a blog that pushed me to the edge and made me jump and decide to be this way. I had this in my mind forever, and I didn't know if I could execute it. And there was no blog on earth and no person on earth who could, tell me that I could do it and I would be successful and rich and famous and happy, 4 years later. It didn't make sense. So there needs to be something else, I think, that communicates to the fears and the scariness, making that decision, taking that plunge. So I think that I wanted to talk to people directly of experiencing that, about the struggles of being an artist, but also about maybe staying in their situation and adapting a little bit of their lives, or evolving past just a professional whatever they are into a professional whatever they are who also does this, or who has found a way to incorporate this into their profession. Because that's sort of how I got by for so long in corporate America. I did all this really hard work and number crunching and research, but I also wrote in the newsletter, every quarter, every month. And there was this point where I think that's what kept me going. The responsibility of running this newsletter and, bossing people around and putting it together and working hard on, a creative endeavor. I think that was really important to me. And I think that that's what the focus is right now. The content plan is I'm going to do a lot of writing. And that's, it's a lot easier with WordPress to write something and schedule it to just magically appear, which is huge for me. Because I'll go through these hot and cold periods where I'm just yes, I'm going to write 4 blogs today. And they'll just sit in my Gmail Dropbox, and I will never go back to them. So being able to schedule a blog post for once a month and have 4 months down, or once every 2 weeks is really super dope, and helps me out a lot. What sort of things will be on the site? I think that you'll continue to see me interview people that I admire and trust, and artists, and you'll probably see video blogs still. You'll probably see me talk more about some of the people that I've become affiliated with, like the guys at This Shirt Helps, which is tremendous. I'm still working with Cherry Girl, so I still love to interview bands and talk about, things that are significant in the music industry or in the LGBTQ community. I'm still going to talk about those things. I am also going to have more guest posts, which I never really had. I have these weird interludes where I would interview somebody I really like and post it. Now I'm going to sort of step back, and Joel Runyon has done guest posts that we're going to be putting up, and I've approached a lot of the folks that I mentioned earlier that I admire very much to do a guest post for my site. And I think that that'll be great for just seeing how all of these guys who are very, very bright and driven and forward-thinking and aggressive in their own media strategies and aggressive in their own branding, talking about being creative, which is the heart and soul of who I am. So having them take off their business caps or their finance caps or their, goal accomplishing caps, and talk about the very heart of creativity and how to deal with those struggles and come out of, writer's block, or come out of a situation or an obstacle. That's going to be really, really helpful, I think, not just to me, but to my audience. And I'm really excited to have a space where those guys are like, yeah, you know what, I'll do that. I'm very fortunate to be able to offer that to people for the first time ever. So I would say that updates are going to come probably twice a month. You'll see my blog and you'll see a guest post. I think that that's reasonable for me to accomplish. I'm also, I'm also going to be writing when the mood arises, so it could be more often than that. But I think the fail-safe is going to be twice a month, a guest post, and something original by yours truly. Next question. A few years ago, you wrote a short story called The Identity. I'd argue that our identity is built and composed of the collection of our actions, for better or worse, and the thoughts that led to those actions. We are ultimately judged in the eyes of our peers, the rest of society we're in, by our actions. What is your plan of action going forward? Are you working on any new books? And what other top secret projects keep you up at night because you can't stop thinking about them? Well, if I told you about the top secret projects, I'm not even going to finish that, because if I did that, but I am working on I'm pretty close to actually finishing up my very first nonfiction piece, which is a book about eczema, which I have had since I was a very small child. So that was something that has always been really impactful in my life. I've been very, very sick as a result of my skin condition. So I heard once that you should write the thing you want to read, and this is that. That's the thing I want to read. That's the thing I want to give to the world right now. That's where my head is at. The Identity has been such a beautiful / sore point for me. The Identity, as most people know, is based on how I met one of my only very, very serious girlfriends. There's only been maybe 3 very, very serious girlfriends in my life. And that was sort of the artistic way of capturing the essence of that, the challenges of that relationship, the life of that relationship, the vitality of that relationship, the sparks and the chemistry of that relationship, and sort of immortalizing it in a way that I could be proud of. Give or take a few liberties, but for the most part, the dialogue has always been really accurate to those circumstances. I originally thought of The Identity as a sort of serialized blog, which is how it was posted back in the day. And then, sort of a serialized choose your own adventure style fiction piece, because I always wanted it to be like, all right, every 10 chapters, there's a sort of cliffhanger that could be the end, because I didn't know how comfortable I felt giving away all of these really sort of private details of a relationship. And my ex that this story is about kind of loathes my guts, so out of respect for her, I also didn't want to create something that sort of drags out our relationship, just kind of never ends, and it's like The Identity, part 12, and, we're both, 37 and we're just like married and have kids, and she's like, why the hell are you still talking about this? And I'm like, why am I still talking about this? So that's where that is. There is a part 2. I mean, I need to confirm that for everyone, including my mother, who has threatened my life if I don't put out part 2. So just know that if I go missing, it's because the identity part 2 has not come out quickly enough. I think that it's a great story, and it's been relatively well received, and I love that. I love that. But I think the eczema book is going to be the next big push you see from me, and I would like to see where that goes before I start going backwards towards whether or not I'm ready to keep that conversation going. And Seth Godin raised a very strong point when I told him about this idea to write this book on eczema. And he said, am I ready to carry, the torch for every girl who's ever had eczema ever? So now I'm not just the gay writer, the lesbian writer. I'm the lesbian writer who has eczema, or the girl who has eczema. And I think that I'm perfectly fine being the martyr, or the torchbearer of the cause of things that I feel proudly about, and that's one of them. So I will certainly keep you updated about how the book is coming along. Dan writes, progress of technology can be a huge economic advantage or a devastating crushing reality. A few friends recently discussed how programming and automation are catalysts for these changes. It seems that there are natural synergies between any industry and programming/automation. This is the reality of how industries are adapting. Even the legendary IKEA catalog is moving toward going completely digital, with their carpenters and builders and photographers being trained to have 3D modeling and programming skills. How do you see the various industries you're involved in evolving with technology? And how do you plan on taking advantage of these changes? I think that in media right now, you're seeing more of a one-touch type of approach. There's less of a focus on how to do something, and more of a focus on doing it well, if that makes sense. I don't think, like, you look at like RJ Metrics and it's like you don't have to install anything, you sign up, and it's like this very user friendly piece of analysis that helps you grow your brand. Or like Razor's Edge, which there's all of these prompts and commands that you can do to save your favorites, so you don't have to do the whole process again. I think what you're seeing is people doing less work, just in all the fields that we're involved in. Even like dragon speak. Like my mom was like, I should get you this for Christmas. And I'm just like, I kind of still like talking to people and writing things with my hands and typing. I'm still okay with that. So I think you're seeing people doing less work, and this sort of advent of sort of cream of the crop people who are just propelling themselves forward, while all of these people are like, I'm going to do less. And all of these other people are going, well, I'm going to do everything. And you're seeing all of these people who have all of this versatility, a carpenter with 3D modeling and programming skills, and who knows how to use ATS or CMS or different kinds of skill sets. It's like, you want the guy that has too many skills, because that if shit gets hard, that guy knows what he's doing, and that's the guy you want on your team. So I think you're seeing people getting really lazy and comfortable, and then you're also seeing people work really hard and a lot of grinding hustlers. And I think that's really great. I think you're seeing that in art. I think you're seeing that in media. I think you're seeing that in technology. And I also think that as more people have access to the same technology within the same fields, you're seeing people be more creative in fields where the guy who had the most sales was the top guy. So now you're seeing, lots of really strong media people who don't necessarily do a lot of process, but there's like two media people who are really strong, who are very, very creative, and they're very dangerous because they're not just, looking at, CPC campaigns and things like that. They're thinking about how they can get you press for free or as cheap as possible, not using AdWords anymore. They're, going old school and putting provocative ads in the newspapers, and they're putting, things that are going to create drama and tell stories. They're putting them in bus shelters, and people are taking pictures of it and Instagramming it, and it's spreading like wildfire on Facebook. And it's, there's this, people are capturing this idea that was very foreign to us like 5 years ago, which is like going viral, like the virility of something. People are figuring out ways to use that and harness that. And it's going to be the smartest, most versatile guys in the room that are running their industries and running the fields. And I think that's going to be awesome because it's really, really easy to work with people who are versatile and who have their, who have many hats that they wear. It's very, very difficult to work with somebody who only does one thing because they can't for the life of them understand what you do. And I think, just even deciding that instead of writing all this stuff that I was going to use my webcam to answer these questions is an example of how you use technology to make yourself better. I'm not scared of the camera, and I'm not scared of answering questions on camera. And I'm very lucky that I can communicate in a way that I feel is very effective with people. So I plan on continuing to develop and wear as many beanies/hats as possible, and continue to be better, better at marketing, better writer, a better artist, a better creative, and a better collaborator, a better media person, a better think tank. So all of those things are hugely important, and I think the people that are going to do really well are going to be the people who understand that. In several series of lengthy fictional novels, the dream world is depicted as another dimension accessible through technology or special techniques, in which the individual's imagination and sharpness of the mind is the sole power that exists. There's an old saying that goes something like, if you can dream it, you can do it. Humans are capable of so many incredible things that sound like fantasy or science fiction at face value. What are some things you'd like to do or be part of that would fit into this category of fantastical ambition? I think a lot of the things that I want to be a part of are super boring and super normal. So, like, I've always wanted to be really active in the nonprofit space. Growing up in Harlem, I saw a lot of underprivileged kids. I saw a lot of single parent homes. I saw a lot of drug abuse in the parents of my friends and my own siblings' lives. I saw those things and siblings' friends and things like that. So I've always wanted to be active in helping build up lower income, underprivileged communities. I really wanted to do that. I don't know how fantastical that is, but I certainly want to do that. I always, on the other side of the nonprofit space, I always wanted to do something that made it a lot more transparent. I think people need to know where their money is going, how much of it is actually being used, and
I mean, for the life of me, I can't figure out why people running nonprofits are making millions of dollars. It's sort of, it's this weird distortion that I just can't get behind. Some of the other things that I'd like to get involved in is just propelling the artists forward. I think that's important. I always wanted to be a part of somebody who is in the conversation of making the writer more serious and more admirable. I don't know if that's something that I can take on my own. That might be fantastical. But, I mean, that's meaningful to me. I mean, you know, I really secretly wanted to adapt Blindness by Jose Saramago. And then it was adapted, and Julianne Moore and Mark Ruffalo was in it, and were in it. And, it was a great movie, and I loved it, and I, skipped work to see it, which is an admission that I feel totally comfortable making years later. And there's a couple of books that I really, really love that I would just kill, legitimately murder someone to be the person to adapt them. I have two pilots that I wrote, one drama, one comedy. One is very good, the other one is terrible, as these things usually happen. I would like, there's a part of me that would love to be a showrunner, that would love to take on that responsibility and see how I would do, to just go through that process and create something like three-dimensional and see my writing sort of lit up rather than the other way around, which is typically how I write. Like, something happens and I try to harness that experience into words. I'd love to take words and create an experience that people can see and breathe and feel and touch and attach to people. I mean, that's a huge undertaking, but I mean, I think I can do it. So that's something that I think is really important. I would love to see one of my pilots, get to the next level. See how something that I wrote would do on the small screen or on the big screen. See how people would relate to it. That would be awesome. So, we're at the closing mark of this. Recommend up to 5 books or authors for readers to check out. I think I did that earlier. I said that I was, I'm a big fan of Michael Ellsberg, so The Education of Millionaires is hugely, hugely interesting. I would definitely recommend Ray Bradbury. Fahrenheit 451 is one of my favorite books ever. Chris Guillebeau's book, The $100 Startup. Really, really interesting. Really great stuff. I'd recommend that to people. This is kind of odd, but I would actually recommend to people that they, put their pennies away and get a subscription to the New Yorker. It's still the smartest writing you're gonna find. So that's huge. I love Saramago. You never know what you're gonna get with him. So I think, and the 4-hour series, the 4-Hour Anything by Tim Ferriss, I'm a huge, huge fan. The 4-Hour Chef is on pre-order, and I can't wait to see how, Tim Ferriss, this sort of mad genius scientist, handles cooking. And I'm kind of a nerd that way, so I'm really excited to see how he did that, to see how he adapted the techniques and all of the analysis and all of the trial and error that he has in his other two books to cooking, to this very sort of artistic, not necessarily to the letter experience. Cooking is a lot of things to a lot of people. Whereas working out is like working out. It's getting healthy, it's being fit, it's living longer. Working out is not fluid. It has a definitive purpose for people. So it's going to be really cool to see how the 4-Hour Chef turns out. So those are the things that I would recommend off the top of my head. Then he said, any questions, comments, things that he didn't ask about. I wanted to say, if you made it this far, thank you. Thank you for sitting with me for 54 minutes. This was awesome, and I can't believe I did it in one take sporadically. I hope that I get to do more of these. And again, I encourage you to check out Waking Ideas. That's Danny's site. Please click around my site, the new ChristinaVillarini.com. And if there's anybody that you would like to see guest posts, or you would like to write a guest post, I encourage you to email me, shoot me an email, and say hello. Thanks, guys.